The Golden Hustle, a complete guide to harvesting and selling raw, unfiltered honey from your backyard. So you've been watching the bees dance in your lavender bushes, or maybe you've spent a few too many late nights falling down the homesteading rabbit hole on YouTube. You're thinking about liquid gold, raw, unfiltered, backyard honey. It sounds poetic, doesn't it? The hum of the hive, the smell of beeswax, and that first taste of honey that hasn't been blasted with heat or stripped of its soul in a factory. But here's the thing. Turning a backyard hobby into a raw honey sales side hustle is a journey that's equal parts science, sweat, and storytelling. People aren't just buying sugar in a jar. They are buying a piece of your local ecosystem. They are buying the health benefits that the big box stores filtered out. If you're ready to transition from bee watcher to honey entrepreneur, pull up a chair. We're going to dive deep into everything you need to know about harvesting, bottling, and selling raw honey from your own backyard. Why raw and unfiltered is your secret weapon. Before we even touch a hive tool, we have to understand the market. If you go to a standard supermarket, you'll see rows of clear golden liquid. Most of that is heavily processed. To make it stay liquid forever and look pretty on a shelf, big packers heat it to high temperatures, pasteurization, and push it through extremely fine filters. This process kills the delicate enzymes, neutralizes the antioxidants, and removes the local pollen. Essentially, it turns a complex superfood into basic syrup. Raw, unfiltered honey is different. It's taken straight from the extractor, passed through a simple mesh sieve to catch big chunks of wax or a stray bee wing, and put into a jar. It still contains live enzymes, which aid digestion, local pollen, which many people swear by for seasonal allergy relief, propolis, the bee glue that has natural antibacterial properties. When you sell backyard honey, your selling point is authenticity. Your honey will look different every season. It might be light and floral in the spring, or dark and molasses-like in the fall. That variety isn't a flaw, it's your brand. The harvest from hive to bucket. Harvesting honey is the most rewarding and stickiest day of the year. For a small-scale backyard operation, you don't need $1 million facility, but you do need a solid workflow. When to harvest. Timing is everything. You want to wait until the bees have capped the honey. This means the moisture content is low enough, usually below 18%, that the bees have sealed the cells with a thin layer of wax. If you harvest wet honey that isn't capped, it can ferment in the jar. Nobody wants honey beer when they're looking for toast topping. Generally, in most temperate climates, the main harvest happens in late July or August, though some beekeepers get a spring flow harvest in June, the gear you'll need. For a backyard side hustle, you can start relatively lean. A B2YC suit and smoker. Safety first. Even the nicest bees get defensive when you're taking their winter food. A fume board or bee brush to get the bees off the honey frames. An uncapping knife or fork to peel back those wax caps. A honey extractor. This is the big drum that spins the frames. For a backyarder, a manual 2-frame or 3-frame stainless steel extractor is perfect. Food grade buckets. Use 5-gallon buckets with a honey gate, a spout at the bottom. The extraction process. Once you've brought your honey supers, the boxes where bees store extra honey, into a bee-proof room, your kitchen or garage, it's time to get to work. Uncapping, slice off the wax cappings. Save that wax. You can melt it down for candles or salves later. Another great side hustle product. Spinning, place the frames in the extractor. Centrifugal force flings the honey out against the walls, where it drips down to the bottom. The unfiltered filter, to keep it truly unfiltered but clean, run the honey through a coarse stainless steel sieve into your bottling bucket. This catches the big bits but lets the pollen through. Settle in. Let the honey sit in the bucket for 24 to 48 hours. Air bubbles and tiny wax particles will rise to the top. This honey scum is actually delicious, But for professional sales, you'll want to skim it off so your jars look pristine. Bottling and branding, making it look as good as it tastes. The jar is your business card. In the world of artisanal food, people absolutely judge a book by its cover. Choosing your jars. Glass is the gold standard for raw honey. It feels premium, it's infinitely recyclable, and it shows off the color of your honey beautifully. Classic muth jars with cork tops give a vintage apothecary vibe that screams backyard craft. Standard hex jars or queen line jars are also very popular. If you're selling at high volumes or shipping, high quality BPA-free plastic squeeze bottles are more practical. But keep in mind they don't carry the same artisanal weight as glass. The label, your story in 3 inches. Your label needs to do 2 things: comply with the law and sell your story. Legal requirements. Most places require the common name of the product, honey, the net weight, usually in both ounces, pounds, and grams, and your name at address. The raw factor. Use the words raw and unfiltered prominently. Local connection. Mention your town or county. People love supporting their hyper-local ecosystem. The warning. Always include a small note. Do not feed honey to infants under 1 year of age. This is due to the risk of botulism spores, which a baby's digestive system can't handle yet. Navigating the legalities. Cottage food laws. One of the biggest hurdles for new honey sellers is worrying about demand. The good news is that in many regions, honey is covered under cottage food laws because honey is naturally acidic and has very low moisture. It's a low-risk food. It's naturally antimicrobial. Bacteria basically explode when they touch it. Because of this, many states and provinces allow you to sell honey from your home kitchen without a commercial license, as long as your sales stay under a certain dollar amount, often $10,000 to $50,000 per year. Check your local regulations. Some areas require a simple food handler's permit, while others might require you to register your hives with the Department of Agriculture. Marketing your honey. How to find your customers. You have the product. It's bottled, labeled, and looking beautiful. Now, how do you move it? 1, the power of hyper-local Facebook groups. And don't underestimate your neighborhood Facebook group. You know, a simple post like, just finished our summer harvest. We have 20 jars of raw, unfiltered honey from our backyard hives in your neighborhood. 15 jars, DM to grab one. Often results in a sellout within hours. People love the idea of the big guy gal down the street. 2, farmers markets. This is where you build a brand. A small table with a nice tablecloth, a couple of observation frames, empty wax combs, and some tasters will draw people in. Offer honey flights if you have different harvests. Let people taste the difference between spring clover and fall goldenrod. 3, local coffee shops and bakeries. Small independent shops love local interest items near the register. Offer to do a wholesale deal or a consignment arrangement. If a local bakery uses your honey in their backyard honey latte, you've got a permanent customer and a great marketing shout out. 4, direct to consumer via social media. Create an Instagram or TikTok for your hives. People are fascinated by the behind the scenes of beekeeping. Show the bees working, show the honey dripping from the extractor, and talk about the flowers blooming in your yard. When you post that honey is ready announcement, your followers will already be invested in the process. Pricing for profit. One of the biggest mistakes backyard beekeepers make is underpricing their honey. If you see honey for $6 a pound at the grocery store, do not try to match that price. You can't compete on price, but they can compete on quality. Raw, local honey typically sells for anywhere from $1 to $2 per ounce. A 12 jar for $12.50 is very common in the artisanal market. Remember to factor in the cost of the jar and lid, $1.50, $3.00. The cost of the label. Your time, beekeeping is labor intensive. Equipment depreciation. Your honey is a premium limited edition product. Price it that way. Dealing with crystallization, the education factor. As a raw honey seller, your biggest customer service issue will be crystallization. Because raw honey contains pollen and hasn't been overheated, it will eventually turn solid and sugary. Many consumers think this means the honey has gone bad or that you added sugar to it. You need to educate them. Include a small honey care card with every purchase. Explain that crystallization is actually proof of purity. It shows the honey is raw. Tell them how to fix it. Gently warm the jar in a bowl of warm water, not boiling, to return it to liquid state. Expanding the side hustle beyond the jar. Once you've mastered raw honey sales, you can look at vertical integration, a fancy business term for making more stuff from the same source. Infused honey. Add dried lavender, chili peppers. Hot honey is huge right now. Or vanilla beans to your honey. Beeswax products. Use the wax from your harvest to make lip balms, candles, or reusable food wraps. Bee pollen. If you add a pollen trap to your hive, you can sell jars of fresh bee pollen as a superfood supplement. Propolis tinctures. High-end health food stores pay a premium for local propolis, the sustainable mindset. Finally, remember that the raw honey sales business is a partnership with nature. You aren't just a business owner, you're a steward of these insects. Make sure you leave enough honey for the bees to survive the winter. A dead colony is a $200 loss and a heartbreak. If you treat your bees well and keep your honey raw and unfiltered, you aren't just making a few extra bucks, you're providing your community with a genuine, healthful connection to the land they live on. Harvesting honey is sticky, it's hot, and you might get the occasional sting, but when you see that first jar of liquid gold sitting on your counter, knowing exactly which flowers it came from, you'll realize it's one of the most fulfilling side hustles on the planet. Happy beekeeping, and may your flow be heavy.